their home. A year on, and Scott still missed the hustle and bustle of London life. Their new home, set deep in Kielder Forest, north of the Pennines, was surrounded by 250 square miles of nothing but trees. For Sara, it was required. For Scott, even though he never said, she was sure it was hell. But this was their home. It was peaceful. Nobody bothered them here. It was quiet, and most importantly, it was safe. And so was her family. The joy had gone out of cooking, Sara realised, as she dumped the salad in the wooden bowl and half-heartedly stirred it around. The joy had gone out of most things, she thought now, putting the bowl down and staring out of the window. The move here was supposed to be the start of something new, something positive, hopeful, living here among all this nature. But it was quiet. Too quiet. She dipped her head as she thought about her previous home, always noisy with the two boys. Although that was unfair. Scott was always quiet. Ryan, however, could never seem to just talk. Everything was a yell or a shout, even normal conversation. It had got on her nerves back then, but she'd give anything to live in a house like that again. Can't go back. She snapped to attention, brought out of her reverie. Yes, there was no going back. What had happened had impacted all of them, changed them beyond recognition. All they could do was get on with it. She pulled herself away from the window and set out 3 plates on the dining table. Overcome with a sudden fatigue that felt like smacking into a brick wall, she slumped into a chair. Footsteps on the wooden stairs, as slow as her tread had been earlier. They didn't pause, and she didn't look up as Scott slipped out of the house and closed the door behind him. In the oven, the chips began to burn. Sara put her head in her hands, unable to bring herself to care. "Scott!" yelled Sara up the stairs. "Dinner!" It wasn't unusual for there to be no reply, but normally she heard the telltale sound of footsteps or the squeak of a bedroom door as it opened. Now, though, the house was filled with even more silence than usual. In the kitchen, she looked at the 3 meals she had served up. "Where is he?" she asked the shadowy figure of her younger son. There was no reply. "Nobody answers me anymore," she thought. Suddenly angry, she darted out into the hall and took the stairs 2 at a time. She paused outside Scott's closed door, remembered a couple of hours ago his face at the window, looking down on her as she pulled the rose bloom off the bush and stamped on it. Taking a deep, jerky breath that betrayed the fury she tried so hard to hide, she turned the handle and shoved the door open. The room was silent, neat and tidy. The bed made and the cover smoothed. Not the normal room of a teenage boy. On the nightstand was his backpack. Sara shuddered, screwed her eyes closed before forcing them back open. It wasn't the original backpack, not the one she had found last year. She knew that. But it was similar, same brand, same style. They all looked the same. But it was not that one. Not the one she had picked up, intending to throw away, the one that had been on his back at the school, covered in blood. Falling back against the doorframe, she raised her hands to her mouth as the memory crashed into her. Almost a whole year ago now, in a different room, but with much the same items in it. As much as she hadn't wanted to touch it, it was more important that he didn't come home and see it, covered in all that blood. Protecting him, the way a mother should. With a small hiss at the sudden reappearance of a horror she'd tried to forget, Sara swiveled on the balls of her feet, stepped into the hall and pulled Scott's door closed behind her. The flashback diminished with the door shut, and she looked around the empty hallway. He wasn't here. Scott had gone out. Now she remembered. The light tread of footsteps on